Let's be honest, the world's getting weirder, and it's not just your imagination. Every day, it feels like the rules of nature are being rewritten right before our eyes. The weather, once a background character in our lives, has now taken center stage, demanding our attention in ways we never expected. The weather's leading the charge, transforming from a casual conversation starter to a force that shapes headlines, disrupts lives, and leaves entire communities scrambling to adapt. Hurricanes, wildfires, and heat waves are now headline news, not just small talk. These aren't rare freak events anymore. They're becoming the new normal, and the impacts are impossible to ignore. Every season brings a fresh round of devastation, and the costs, both human and financial, keep climbing. In the middle of this chaos, the US government has made a baffling move, one that's left scientists, policymakers, and everyday citizens scratching their heads. They've stopped updating the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's NOAA database of billion-dollar climate disasters. This isn't just a bureaucratic hiccup, it's a decision with real consequences. That's right. Just as climate costs skyrocket, we've decided to stop counting. It's like watching your house catch fire and then throwing away the smoke alarm. The timing couldn't be more surreal or more dangerous. Imagine your doctor saying, "Your cholesterol's high, so let's stop testing it." That's the level of logic here. When the problem gets worse, the solution isn't to close your eyes and hope it goes away, but that's exactly what's happening on a national scale. For decades, this database was our national ledger for the rising cost of floods, droughts, and storms. It was the tool that let us track, analyze, and understand the true toll of climate disasters on our economy, our infrastructure, and our lives. Now, it's locked away, and the timing couldn't be worse. Just as the climate crisis accelerates, we're choosing to blindfold ourselves, cutting off the very information that could help us prepare and respond. Climate disasters aren't distant threats, they're flooding our homes, burning our backyards, and upending lives in every corner of the country. From small towns to big cities, no one is immune. Shutting down the tool that measures this economic carnage is more than irresponsible. It's dangerous. Without data, we can't see the full picture, and that means we can't make smart decisions about how to protect ourselves or where to invest in resilience. It hides the true scale of the crisis we're all facing. When the numbers disappear, so does our ability to hold leaders accountable, to demand action, and to understand what's really at stake. Scientists and researchers who rely on this data are left in the dark, forced to guess at trends that used to be crystal clear. Emergency planners, insurance companies, and local governments are suddenly flying blind, unable to assess risk or plan for the future. Tonight, we'll break down what this database was, why it mattered, and the government's weak excuses for shutting it down. We'll dig into the ripple effects, how this blackout impacts not just policy, but real people, real communities, and real futures. We'll look at the real-world consequences of flying blind into a climate superstorm. When families are forced to evacuate, when roads are washed away, when homes are lost, the numbers matter. They tell the story of what we're up against and what we stand to lose. When a government handles crisis by putting on a blindfold, someone has to shout about it, because silence only serves those who benefit from inaction, and the rest of us are left to pick up the pieces. And there's a lot to shout about. The stakes are higher than ever, and the consequences of ignorance are measured in lost lives, shattered communities, and billions of dollars. This is a story about data, dollars, and a deliberate choice to embrace ignorance. It's about the power of information, and what happens when that power is taken away. Because when knowledge is our only hope, turning it off is a disaster in itself. The lights are flickering, the alarms are blaring, and we're about to find out what happens when we choose not to listen. Let's dive in. So, what exactly was this database that seemed to hold the key to understanding our climate crisis? It wasn't just a spreadsheet or a collection of numbers tucked away in a government office. It was a living, breathing record of our nation's most devastating weather events, a tool that helped us make sense of chaos, loss, and resilience. Officially, it was called the Billion-Dollar Weather and Climate Disasters Database. The name might sound straightforward, but its purpose was anything but ordinary. This was the gold standard for tracking the financial toll of America's most destructive storms, floods, wildfires, and more. Since 1980, NOAA has meticulously tracked every single U.S. weather disaster that caused at least $1 billion in damage. That's over 4 decades of hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, droughts, and blizzards, each one carefully logged and analyzed. The database didn't just count disasters, it mapped them, tracked their frequency, and revealed patterns that would otherwise be lost in the noise. It became a crucial resource for understanding how climate change was turning rare catastrophes into regular occurrences. This wasn't a hobbyist spreadsheet, it was a sophisticated operation, pulling together data from FEMA, insurance companies, state agencies, and local governments. Each entry was the result of careful investigation and cross-checking. The database covered everything: destroyed homes, ruined crops, shuttered businesses, and the ripple effects that disasters have on entire communities. It captured the true cost of climate chaos, not just in dollars, but in livelihoods lost, and futures changed. For families picking up the pieces after a storm, for farmers watching their fields disappear under floodwaters, and for business owners forced to close their doors. These numbers represented real lives and real struggles. Scientists, journalists, and policymakers all relied on this database to translate the chaos of climate disasters into something measurable, dollars and cents. It was the foundation for research, reporting, and decision-making at every level. Headlines like, "Climate disasters cost the U.S. $177 billion last year," didn't just grab attention. They sparked debate, drove policy, and made the consequences of climate change impossible to ignore. The database's consistency and long history revealed a terrifying trend. Billion-dollar disasters were becoming more frequent, shifting from rare, once-in-a-generation events to something disturbingly routine. It was hard evidence, data that could stand up in courtrooms, in Congress, and in the public square. It wasn't opinion or speculation, it was the factual backbone of our climate reality. In many ways it was our national memory and our warning system, a record of what we've survived and a signal of what we might face next. And now, shockingly, we've fired the bookkeeper for doing the job too well. The very person tasked with keeping our records straight has been shown the door, leaving a void where accountability once lived. This wasn't just data, it was the story of what we've endured as a nation, and a warning about what's coming if we fail to pay attention. Losing this database doesn't just erase numbers, it erases our clearest, most honest record of climate reality, a record we can't afford to forget. When NOAA axed the database, scientists panicked, and for good reason. Imagine trying to warn people about smoking but being banned from mentioning cancer or cost. The database was the ultimate translator, turning climate science into dollars everyone could grasp. It showed that a hotter world meant billions in real losses. Flooded homes, scorched crops, burned towns. Without that anchor, climate change becomes abstract, less urgent. The database connected personal disaster to national trends, showing people they weren't alone. Losing it means losing objective, government-backed proof. Now any new numbers will be dismissed as biased, and the government has abandoned its role as scorekeeper. The result? Confusion, arguments, and a dangerous lack of clarity. We're left with a vacuum where facts used to be. Why did this happen? The official answer: evolving priorities, statutory mandates, and staffing changes. Translation: bureaucratic nonsense. Evolving priorities is code for, we don't want to say the real reason. What's more important than tracking trillion-dollar destruction? Apparently nothing specific. Statutory mandates is just passing the buck, no law forced this. Staffing changes hints at the truth, but it's presented like a flat tire, not a deliberate choice. The reality: this was a political decision, not a technical one. The excuses are flimsy, transparent, and designed to confuse. NOAA didn't have to do this, they chose to, and the public is left in the dark. Let's get real. The database didn't vanish by accident. This wasn't some random technical glitch or a simple oversight. It was a deliberate act, a calculated move that sent shockwaves through the scientific community and beyond. The erasure of years of climate data was a warning shot, a signal that the rules had changed overnight. The new administration, openly hostile to climate science, made it happen. From day one, they made their intentions clear. Science that didn't fit their agenda was a target. The message was unmistakable. Climate research was no longer welcome at the highest levels of government. This is part of a larger effort to dismantle the government's ability to study and fight climate change. It wasn't just about deleting files, it was about erasing the infrastructure, the people, and the expertise that made climate science possible. Decades of progress were being unraveled, piece by piece. The so-called staffing changes were actually mass firings. Hundreds, then over 1,000 NOAA employees, many of them scientists and analysts, were let go. These weren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These were dedicated experts, people who had spent their careers tracking storms, studying rising seas, and warning us about the dangers ahead. You can't gut an agency and expect it to function. When you clear out the labs and silence the experts, you don't just slow down progress, you bring it to a grinding halt. The loss of institutional knowledge is devastating, and the ripple effects are felt for years. This wasn't about efficiency, it was about crippling science. The rhetoric of streamlining and cutting red tape was just a smokescreen for a much more dangerous agenda, one that put ideology over evidence, and politics over public safety. The shutdown fits a pattern, scrubbing climate change from websites, rewriting official documents, and erasing the very language scientists use to describe our changing world. It's an attempt to rewrite reality itself, to make the crisis disappear with the stroke of a keyboard. Appointing oil lobbyists to environmental posts, stacking agencies with industry insiders, and putting profit over people. These moves weren't subtle. They were a clear signal that the foxes were now guarding the henhouse and creating an information blackout. When the lights go out in the newsroom and the data disappears from public view, it becomes nearly impossible for journalists, researchers, and the public to hold anyone accountable. Get rid of the data, get rid of the evidence. If there's no record, there's no proof. And without proof, the truth becomes whatever those in power say it is. Without evidence, you can pretend the problem doesn't exist. You can stand at a podium and claim there's nothing to worry about, even as the world outside tells a different story. This wasn't a budget cut, it was a gag order. Scientists were silenced, their work censored, their warnings ignored. The public was left in the dark, denied the information they needed to make informed decisions. The result, a nation flying blind, by design. We lost our ability to see what's coming, to prepare for the storms, the fires, the floods. It's like trying to navigate a hurricane with your eyes closed, and the consequences are real. The disasters keep coming, the warnings grow louder, but the tools to understand and respond have been stripped away. This is the cost of climate denial, and we're all paying the price. What did we lose? The database gave us the numbers behind the headlines. In 2017, it showed hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria cost over $300 billion. It tracked wildfires like California's Camp Fire, $18 billion gone, a town wiped out. It revealed patterns, more frequent, more expensive disasters, not just one-offs, droughts, floods, heat domes, each with massive, often hidden economic impacts. The database turned scattered tragedies into a clear, urgent crisis. Now those stories are just anecdotes, not data points. We've lost our ability to see the big picture, and that makes us all more vulnerable. What now? Without the data, planning for the future gets a lot harder. Cities can't budget for seawalls, agencies can't target relief, and insurers can't model risk. Politicians can now claim climate action is too expensive, because the true cost is hidden. The fossil fuel industry will dismiss any non-governmental numbers as biased. Homeowners may see insurance skyrocket or property values drop, all because the risk is now invisible. Most importantly, we're less safe. Without data, we can't see where help is needed most. Turning off the alarm system means we'll be surprised by the next disaster, and history will repeat itself. Only now, we're not even taking notes. Here's the irony. A government obsessed with cutting costs just killed the best tool for tracking one of its biggest expenses. Climate disasters are a tax we all pay, whether we admit it or not. Stopping the count doesn't stop the costs, it just hides them. We lose clarity, accountability, and the ability to have honest conversations about risk. Without shared facts, every number is suspect, every motive questioned. The goal, chaos, and inaction. Problems ignored don't disappear, they get worse. We're handing the next generation a massive, uncalculated debt, and no way to track it. So, the database is gone, but the need for data isn't. The raw numbers still exist, scattered across agencies and private groups. Now, universities, nonprofits, and journalists must step up to rebuild what was lost. It won't be easy. Funding, trust, and political attacks are all hurdles. But transparency and rigor can help restore credibility. The public must demand the numbers, ask what disasters cost, and hold leaders accountable. We can't let this story fade away. Data is the bedrock of democracy. Without it, we're lost. The only way forward is to fight for the facts and refuse to look away. Because in the face of a growing storm, ignorance isn't bliss, it's disaster.